Assalamu alaikum everyone. So today we will be talking about business paper one और इसके अंदर we'll be talking about कि किस तरह आपने business paper one को approach करना है, किस तरह आपने questions को attempt करना है, and our main focus would be कि what are some of the things that you should keep in mind while answering the question and what are some of the things that you should avoid while answering the questions. तो सबसे पहले लेट्स स्टार्ट बाय कि इसका विजन पेपर का ऑब्जेक्टिव क्या होता है. सो द पेपर इज बेसिकली शॉर्ट क्वेश्चंस एंड डेटा रिस्पॉन्सेस. Short questions and data responses, and the time that you are allowed for this paper is 1 hour and 30 minutes. So that means के 90 minutes हैं आपके पास for this paper, और marks for this paper are 80. So 80 marks का ये paper है, and आपके component grade के अंदर, तो आपके component grade के अंदर it is 50% of your grade. So that means के इसका it is equally important than your paper 2. Paper 2 ko we'll be touching in another video, but for this video, the purpose of this video is for focusing on paper 1. So let's move on to talk about के questions कितने आएंगे. So questions का format क्या होगा इस paper के अंदर. So बेटे you will be tested with 4 questions, और ये चारों questions will have a separate data. ये data would usually be of 4 to 5 lines का, और एक short सी case study होगी जिसके अंदर से you'll have to use that information and apply it to the questions. 4 questions का मतलब है कि each question would be of 20 marks, and this each question is divided into 5 sub parts, and हम इन सारे parts को देखेंगे कि what are the demand for these parts and how you're supposed to answer these questions. Let's talk about the assessment objectives. So there are basically 4 assessment objectives that you'll be tested on and that you should know about it. सबसे पहला is your knowledge. It is your knowledge and understanding. The second component of the second assessment objective of your paper is your application. The third one is analysis. And the final assessment objective that you'll be tested on is your evaluation. So अगर एक देखा जाए तो knowledge and understanding is क्या? It's basically memorizing or defining some key terms and stating some pros and cons of some concepts. So this is what your knowledge and understanding is. Application comes when you are basically calculating something. जब आपका data use करके you're calculating something and you're using the data with your business knowledge. So that is what application is all about. कि जो आपको data दिया हुआ है, are you able to filter through that data and are you able to get points out of the data? That is what application is all about. Analysis के अंदर is basically expanding and explaining the knowledge points. कि अगर आपने एक pro या con state किया है, so are you able to develop that point further or not? And we'll talk about that. Evaluation is basically reasoned judgment, या फिर we can say कि it is a balanced argument, कि आपने उन दोनों arguments के अंदर एक balance create किया and then you are evaluating, you are giving a recommendation या something एक final में कि किस तरह वो concepts apply होने चाहिए in what particular context, and we'll talk about this when we are answering the questions. Another thing that you should keep in mind is how to develop analysis. This is very important, or it is more important in your paper 2 than in your paper 1. But in paper 1 जो आपका it's D or E part का question होता है, analysis is important in that. So analysis, as we talked about, it is the area objective 2 in your exams. Let's talk about it. So there is what we call an incomplete, yeah, broken chain of analysis. Chain of analysis. What that essentially means is कि इस case में your analysis lacks development. Let's have an example. कि मैंने अगर एक point explain करना है कि pros and cons, एक advantage explain करना है of a sole trader. So what I'll say is कि अगर मैं कहता हूँ कि a sole trader is a boss of himself, and I stop over here. So this is enough to get me my knowledge points, मगर मैंने इसको further explain नहीं किया. So that means कि मैंने अपने analysis में I lack my development. ठीक है? So what you should do is कि you should have a developed chain of analysis. ठीक है? And what a developed chain of analysis essentially means is कि your analysis should be linked, or there should be links in your answer, and you should be able to give a well discussed point. अब ये well discussed point क्या होता है? Let's expand on that. जो मैंने पहले कहा है, a sole trader जो मैं advantage इसका बता रहा था, is a boss of himself. Now if I have to develop this chain, so what I'll do is कि मैं इसके बाद explain करूंगा. This is because he does not have to work under anyone else. ठीक है? So this is my analysis. अब यहाँ पे the thing is कि मैंने analysis तो build कर लिया, but I have not developed a chain of analysis here. So I'll further explain this analysis. Okay, this is because he does not have to work under anyone. This means, yeah, it means that the sole trader will have complete freedom and autonomy over his decisions, which means he is independent and not subordinate to anyone. So that means he's free to make his decisions. So this is my developed analysis. So baat is the same. मैंने पहले भी यही कहा था कि he's a boss of himself and it's self-explanatory कि but the thing is that the examiner wants you to do this, to develop this analysis into a chain, or this is what a developed analysis looked like. And whenever you're answering your questions, you should avoid this thing कि ये incomplete analysis नहीं देना. So this is something to avoid, and this is something you must do. ठीक हो गया जी? We talked about analysis. Let's move on. अब let's talk about the question structure. सारे questions will follow a somewhat similar structure. सबसे पहले basically there are 5 parts: A, B, C, D and E. अब इन parts में difference क्या है? So part A would be either a identify का question, के identify some factors या define something, ठीक है? So it would be an identify या define something का question. वो कह सकता है कि identify a fixed cost in the in the case, या वो कह सकता है कि identify two क्या कहते हैं current assets from the case या which XYZ business has. So that is what an identify या वो कोई term define करने को कह सकता है. For example कि define on the job training या define off the job training. So जो identify का question is, तो you should be able to give a specific and to the point answer. To the point answer. इधर उधर की बात नहीं करनी. Definition है तो definition के अंदर give 2 points, 2 knowledge points, क्योंकि इसके अंदर 2 knowledge के marks होते हैं. So they give 2 points for the definition, or give example if possible. कुछ terms में there are examples, कुछ के अंदर you won't come up with examples, so give examples where possible. So this is an easy way to get full marks in a 2 mark define या identify का question. So one other thing that you should keep in mind is that you should spend no more than 2 to 3 minutes on this question. अब B part can vary accordingly. B part के अंदर they can either ask you to define another term, दो definitions भी पूछ सकता है, identify का भी आ सकता है, or they can give another variation of the question, that is a calculation. It can ask you to calculate something. हमने define और identify वाले की बात कर ली है. Let's talk about कि calculation में what are some of the most important things that you should keep in mind. So one of the things is कि whenever you are calculating, always show the steps. Steps के usually there are no marks, but if your answer is correct and you haven't shown steps, so you will be credited for that. लेकिन if your answer is not correct and you do not have shown the steps, so you won't get a partial score. So इसीलिए it's recommended to show your steps so that you can score a partial score, so that you can score partial marks even if your calculation is wrong. ठीक है? So one thing is to show your steps. Another thing to keep in mind is to always give the units. For example, अगर मेरे पास for example एक calculation आती है to calculate a gross profit margin and it comes out to be 40%. ठीक है? So writing 40 is wrong. I have to write 40 और उसके साथ एक percentage का sign होना चाहिए and that would be correct. ठीक है? Similarly, अगर मैं just खाली gross profit calculate करने को कहा and it comes out to be 50,000, तो ये 50,000 खाली लिखना is wrong. You have to give a dollar sign या फिर euro sign या pound का sign, whatever the currency is specified in the question. So $50,000 लिखना is the correct. So always give the units in which you are calculating. So that is something जो A और B part के होते हैं. The calculation का भी 2 mark का question होता है and you should be able to do this in 2 to 3 minutes. उसके बाद C part पे आ जाते हैं. C part is usually is a 4 mark question. So यहाँ पे things get a bit trickier. Yeah, it's not tricky, but it's technical हम कह सकते हैं. Things become a bit more technical in a 4 mark question. So 4 mark question is usually दो तरह के variations होते हैं. So let's talk about that. So a 4 mark C part question के दो variations होते हैं. First variation is identify something, identify, and the second variation is outline and explain का question. Outline and explain वाला question. So जो identify का question होगा, it will basically ask you to identify 4 of some things. Let's say कि मैं क्या कहता हूँ, question is identify 4 current assets of a business. ठीक है? So that mean कि मैंने 4 current assets को सिर्फ identify करना है. You do not need explanation in that. So don't get tempted to explain in these questions because that is unnecessary and it usually takes time और आपका time waste होता है and in the exam you don't have time, so wasting time is a very big blunder that you can make. ठीक है? So what I'll simply do is कि मैं बस 4 current assets को state कर दूंगा. Usually you're given lining space सारी दी होती है in which you have to write. So I'll just write trade receivables, cash, bank balance, and prepaid expenses. These are the 4 types of current assets. So मैं बस ये लिख दूंगा and I'll move on. I won't explain these. ठीक है? So that means कि यहाँ पे I have gained full marks. The other type of question is outline and explain का question. So outline and explain का question is basically इसके अंदर अब the mark scheme would be 2 marks will be for knowledge and 2 marks will be for application. And the thing is कि आपने क्या करना है? For example, if I have a question of outline and explain, तो उसके अंदर I have to just state और जहाँ पे explanation की बात आएगी I'll just explain. I'll just quickly add the question. So अगर मेरे पास question है कि outline 2 ways in which XYZ business can promote its products online, right? So some of the things that I need to mind अब इसका मुझे usually I would be given answer space something like this. Way 1 होगा, उसके आगे there will be 2 lines. उसके बाद way 1 की I have to explain, explanation लिखा होगा यहाँ पे and you will be given 2 lines over here. Similarly way 2 and उसकी explanation की lines. So इस तरह you will be given lines in the paper. So I'll just do way 1 का just to give you an idea how to do that. So application mark कहाँ होगा? जहाँ पे I'll explain कि XYZ business किस तरह कर सकता है और knowledge point किधर है कि how a business can promote its products online. So I'll just write social media campaigns, right? और मैं यहाँ पे कह सकता हूँ कि if XYZ business is selling shoes, so I can say कि XYZ business can run ads of shoes on Facebook या Instagram to reach a wider audience. So that is my explanation जिसके अंदर I gained the application point because I have written in context to XYZ business. So that is how you're supposed to answer a 4-mark question. Now coming on to the part D. Part D जो होता है, it's usually a question which is explain या identify and explain. So if it is कि explain का question and it is of 6 marks. और जो marks distribution है, that is as follows. Okay, you have 2 marks for knowledge, you have 2 marks for your application, and you have 2 marks for your analysis. और इसके अंदर भी if we have a sample question कि explain 2 factors which XYZ business should consider while designing new products. So this is a question about new product development. It's of 6 marks. So answer space आपको given होगी. यहाँ पे एक factor या वे वन लिखा होगा और उसके आगे यू विल बी गिवन 2 लाइंस, और इसकी एक्सप्लेनेशन के अंदर यू विल बी गिवन 4 लाइंस। एक पॉइंट की अंदर जस्ट कीप इन माइंड कि व्हेन यू आर आंसरिंग एक फैक्टर बता रहे हो, सो 1 मार्क एक हर फैक्टर के अंदर दे विल बी फॉर नॉलेज। सो 1 नॉलेज, उसके साथ हर पॉइंट के साथ यू हैव टू गिव 1 एप्लीकेशन पॉइंट कि उसको अप्लाई करना है टू द कॉन्टेक्स्ट, एंड देन यू हैव टू 1 वुड बी फॉर एनालिसिस। सो एनालिसिस के यहाँ पे इस तरह मार्क्स होते हैं। सो इफ आई से कि वन थिंग दैट दे शुड कंसिडर व्हाइल डिजाइनिंग द प्रोडक्ट, लेट्स से कि मैं यहाँ पे कहता हूँ कंज्यूमर प्रेफरेंसेस, राइट? सो कंज्यूमर प्रेफरेंसेस, दिस गेट्स मी माय नॉलेज मार्क। अब इसको आगे एक्सप्लेन करना है, सो आई हैव टू नाउ अचीव माय एप्लीकेशन एंड एनालिसिस मार्क्स। सो taking same the XYZ business is a shoe brand, ठीक है? So XYZ business while designing new shoes will have to consider कि what types of shoes या what sizes of shoes are required by the consumers of that business, ठीक है? If the consumer prefer more, क्या कहते हैं, sporty shoes, whether they like more luxury या फिर formal shoes, या whether the customers want some comfy shoes जो कि regular casual wear होता है। So इस तरह क्या है कि I'm applying that to the context of that business. So I'll write my answers using these points. ठीक है? और उसके बाद क्या है कि consumer preferences will give them a better idea while designing the product because they will know कि what type of product they need to design. तो ये जो मैंने आगे आखिरी लाइन बोली है, that is my analysis. And similarly, अगला point भी you have to explain in the same way कि you have to make a checklist first कि हाँ आपने knowledge point लिखा है, yes you have gained the knowledge mark. Have you applied it? Yes you have applied it. And then you have to check whether you have analyzed it or not, and that's the case. Moving on, अब जो हमारा E part होता है, E part is usually out of the case, कि आपको इसमें से case references की जरूरत नहीं होती. It is usually a question which is of which starts with do you think, and this question is of 6 marks. इसके अंदर you have 2 marks for knowledge, you have 2 marks for analysis, and you have 2 marks for evaluation, right? अब now you also have to evaluate this question. We'll see how you are supposed to write an evaluation. जब हम एक 6 मार्क क्वेश्चन की बात कर रहे हैं, जब ये डू यू थिंक है, देयर इज नो एप्लीकेशन मार्क्स, जो नए पेपर्स आ रहे हैं, देयर इज नो एप्लीकेशन फॉर मार्क्स फॉर दिस. यू बेसिकली हैव टू राइट इन कॉन्टेक्स्ट विद द जो आंसर क्वेश्चन दिया हुआ है, एंड इट्स यूजुअली, इसको वी कैन से कि यू हैव टू राइट अ शॉर्ट essay on this. Usually half page का essay होता है, you are given 12 to 13 lines on that. Or this question usually is about, अब ये क्वेश्चन की डिमांड क्या होगी? दिस क्वेश्चन विल आस्क यू to think about something. It will ask you to compare two sides, compare two things, या फिर it will ask you to write two sides of a argument, two sides of an argument. और ये दो तरह की वेरिएशंस आएंगी इस क्वेश्चन के अंदर. तो लेट्स टॉक अबाउट ईच ऑफ दिस. अगर एक कंपैरिजन टू दो चीजों के दरमियान का कंपैरिजन है, तो इस तरह का क्वेश्चन आ जाएगा कि डू यू थिंक whether do you think that external recruitment would be best for let's say for a manufacturing business? So this question is not for that specific case, but उसने manufacturing business का मुझे case दे दिया. So now my question should focus on manufacturing business generally. I do not have to apply that to the case study. मगर it is a comparison between internal versus external recruitment. So इस तरह का question is that is asking me to compare two things. अब एक ही चीज के दो साइड्स ऑफ एन आर्ग्यूमेंट वाला क्वेश्चन वुड लुक समथिंग लाइक दिस कि द क्वेश्चन इज आस्क्ड, फॉर एग्जांपल इफ अ क्वेश्चन इज कि डू यू थिंक दैट MNCs या multinational corporations are harmful for their host countries. अगर मेरे पास ये आता है इस तरह का क्वेश्चन फॉर 6 मार्क्स, सो इसमें मुझे बेसिकली आई हैव टू राइट प्रोज and cons of MNCs for the host country. So two sides of the argument, I have to do this, and end पे I have to give an evaluation, और इसके अंदर भी I have to give an evaluation at the end. So now अब हम बात कर ली इसकी, जब भी हमने pros and cons लिखने हैं, keep in mind you have to develop a chain of analysis which we have talked earlier on. Now let's talk about the evaluation. Okay, how are you supposed to evaluate? ठीक है. So evaluation के अंदर basically there are many approaches to that. There is no hard and fast rule के how you have to evaluate. सबसे पहली evaluation होती है कि you have to give a reasoned judgment, right? So reasoned judgment का क्या मतलब है कि what you are doing is कि you are taking one side के, वो जो हमने बात की थी कि external recruitment बेहतर है कि internal. So you're taking side के at the end you are saying कि हाँ manufacturing business के लिए internal recruitment would be better, and then when you're taking that side you just don't have to say yes or no, then you have to explain your judgment, and explain your judgment के अंदर keep one thing in mind कि जो आपने पहले उसके pros बताए हैं, do not repeat your analysis. That is something which I emphasize on कि you do not have to repeat your answer, कि उसी की एक summary कि at the end if you're taking side of one thing, do not summarize your answer. Do not summarize your answer. So these are some of the things जो evaluation के अंदर you have to keep in mind. The second type of evaluation is कि I like to call it a diplomatic answer. ठीक है. सो उसी की अगर मैं कंक्लूजन लिखता हूं तो इसमें यू आर नॉट गिविंग अ फाइनल वर्डिक्ट के कौन सी रिक्रूटमेंट बेहतर है या कौन सी नहीं है. यू आर सेइंग कि इन सम स्पेसिफिक कॉन्टेक्स्ट एक्सटर्नल रिक्रूटमेंट विल बी बेटर एंड इन सम स्पेसिफिक कॉन्टेक्स्ट इंटरनल रिक्रूटमेंट विल बी बेटर. सो इस तरह के क्वेश्चंस के अंदर यू हैव टू गिव सम डिपेंड ऑन फैक्टर्स, डिपेंड ऑन फैक्टर्स. And what are those? Let's talk about it. ठीक है. Same question कि whether external recruitment is better या नहीं. So I'll say कि overall, क्योंकि मैंने इसके pros and cons दोनों के पहले analyze कर चुका हूं मैं in the answer. I'm just writing a final evaluation. So I'll say overall, both internal recruitment and external recruitment have their pros and cons. However, saying which one is better will depend on, firstly, whether the we'll say okay, it will depend on firstly whether the talent या vacancy is available in-house. If yes, then business might go for the internal recruitment. If the talent या if the vacancy के लिए जो skills required हैं is not available in house, तो external recruitment के लिए चले जाएं. ठीक है. फिर एक और depends on factor दे देते हैं कि the time required for recruiting. ठीक है. If the recruitment is urgent, then the business, if it's urgent, so then business might recruit internally because internal recruitment is less time consuming. If the business has time or business need to make a overall cost effective decision, so then business might go for external recruitment. And then in the end I'll say okay, hence it will vary depending on the business situation. So यहाँ पे I have given a very diplomatic answer कि I have not chosen anything, but I have said that the decision will depend on something. So in these questions you have to give depends on factor. The third approach to the evaluation is कि अगर आपको evaluate करना है some context को या some चीजों को, so the third thing is कि you can give rankings to the importance. ठीक है. अगर मैं कहता हूँ कि do you think कि the amount required for growth is the most important factor to consider while getting a source of finance. So मैं पहले उसमें बता दूंगा कि भाई कौन से फैक्टर्स हैं, कौन कौन से फैक्टर्स हो सकते हैं और उनकी इंपॉर्टेंस क्या है, उनको एनालाइज करूंगा. एंड एट द एंड आई विल से कि द मोस्ट इंपॉर्टेंट विल बी क्या कहते हैं द कॉस्ट. देन आई विल डू अ रैंकिंग के उसके बाद कौन सा मोस्ट इंपॉर्टेंट फैक्टर है, उसके बाद कौन सा. So ranking wale mein bhi you can do. So the type of evaluation, yeah, the approach to evaluation will depend on the question. It will vary. कहीं पे you'll give depends on factor, कहीं पे you'll give a reason judgment, और कहीं पे you'll give ranking of the things that you should do. Some general advice to the some general advice से पहले let's see कि some common errors क्या होते हैं students के. कि सबसे पहला एरर होता है कि students spend too much time on the question, on one question, or too much time on one question leaves you with less time for others, जिसकी वजह से आपकी टाइम मैनेजमेंट खराब हो जाती है. फिर not developing analysis, कि बात अधूरी छोड़ के निकल जाना आगे. So you remember one thing कि less points, more explanation is better than all points but no explanation. This is not good. Another thing which candidates usually do is they do not write specific to the question. Specific to the question का मतलब है कि इधर उधर की बातें करनी, मेन पॉइंट की बात नहीं करनी, which means कि आपको कोई क्रेडिट नहीं मिलता उसका. So ये नहीं करना. और fourth, the most important blunder that the candidates make is that they do not apply. They do not apply. Application के marks are extremely important in your. They do not apply. So application के marks are extremely important for your C part जो 4 mark का है and your D part. ठीक है. और अगर if we see के application की importance क्या है, तो 2 marks, there are almost 4 marks for application in each question. Times that by 4 questions, that means कि 80 में से 16 marks are for your application. तो अगर आपने apply नहीं किया तो you're straight away losing 16 marks and that's a huge chunk of your paper. तो अगर आप apply नहीं करोगे so you're losing on the marks. और analysis का भी same है. Analysis holds more importance because analysis के there are 6 marks for one question and that means कि अगर 4 questions के अंदर you do not have analyzed, so you are losing 24 marks of your exam. And here is a general advice. If you want free application, use calculations. अगर एक जगह पे कोई calculation है, तो use calculations in your application because this is free application points. या आपने calculation की figures बता दी एक case से उठा के, तो फिर another point is कि do hidden calculations as well. Do hidden calculations as well. For example, अगर मेरे पास डेटा के अंदर सेल्स दी हुई हैं, let's say 10,000 की, मेरे पास कॉस्ट ऑफ सेल्स गिवन है 4,000 की, और मुझे ग्रॉस प्रॉफिट गिवन है 6,000 का, ठीक है। तो मेरे पास ये इंफॉर्मेशन है, इस और कैलकुलेशन में से जीपी मार्जिन की कराई हुई है, ठीक है, दैट कम्स आउट टू बी 60%. आई कैन ऑल्सो कैलकुलेट द जीपी मार्कअप हियर. और अगर समवेयर इन द क्वेश्चन उसने मुझे नंबर ऑफ यूनिट्स प्रोड्यूस दिए हैं, आई कैन ऑल्सो कैलकुलेट द सेलिंग प्राइस. और अगर उसने मुझे कुछ और इन्फॉर्मेशन दी हुई है, लेट्स से उसने मुझे एक्सपेंसेस की इन्फॉर्मेशन दी हुई है, आई कैन ऑल्सो कैलकुलेट द नेट प्रॉफिट. See, explicitly he will only ask you to calculate one thing. But जो A star candidates होते हैं, they always calculate the hidden figures as well because that is a free application points. So always calculate the hidden calculations that can be done. इसी तरह break even के अंदर if he asks you to calculate the break even, so आप वो fixed और variable cost से total cost निकाल सकते हो, आप उससे per unit cost निकाल सकते हो, you can do a whole lot of things, आप उससे margin of safety निकाल सकते हो. So always do the hidden calculations because that is very crucial for your application points and that are free application points. The second advice is to always develop chain of analysis. Always develop your analysis. Or the third advice is to always do the evaluation in a reasoned way. Do not give yes, yeah, no as your evaluation or judgment. Because simply saying yes or no, evaluation marks nahi milte. You have to explain that within the context. So that was business paper one and how you're supposed to attempt business paper one. And that is it. Best of luck for your exams. Allah Hafiz.